Okay, so apparently this is live. And happy Moon Day, by the way, everyone. It's Monday Moon Day, and I just thought I'd come and do this video, which was one of the request videos that you made. Actually, my friend Donald made this video request, so thank you. And the question, or the kind of request that I decided to make, or this video is going to be, this live stream is going to be titled, Are You Psychic? Are you psychic? So thank you very much, Donald, for that. I hope everyone, by the way, is well. Astrologically speaking, Jupiter went direct today. Uranus went retrograde. And I actually woke up with a bit of a sore throat, as did my man. And I just like to talk to him this morning about how, Taurus is associated with the throat and the throat chakra, and Uranus is in Taurus. And so I'm not going to talk too much about Uranus retrograde in this video, but any retrograde is the opportunity to review, revisit, etc., darlings. And in the Uranus sense, it's to review those revolutions, those kind of flip decisions that you made, flip changes to routines, perhaps. And to see what worked and what didn't, and to, in some cases, go back a couple steps, or to realize that something was just you trying to be unique or revolutionary, but actually there was no cause, because with Uranus, Uranian energy, Aquarian energy, that's one of the big dilemmas. Is this rebellion just for the sake of it, or is it actually for a cause kind of thing? So that's something that you might find to be a retrograde theme for you, as Uranus kind of goes backwards through Taurus for a bit. And also we have Mercury in Leo again. So you might know or recall that it was retrograding. It retrograded out of Leo and back into Cancer, and then went direct again, and is finally in Leo again to join Venus, the Sun, and Mars. So this stellium right now is going on in Leo as we get, ever closer to Virgo season, ever closer to Virgo. But yeah, instead of maybe because Mercury is about thinking and communicating. So instead of like thinking, I feel, or saying, I feel this, I feel that, Mercury is going to want us to do more of I am, I simply am, or I shine this way, I'm authentic this way, I express this way, or I entertain this way, or I am proud of such and such a thing. And also, I see you, I see your kind of performativity, I see your authenticity, I see your fire, I see your whatever the case might be. That's Leo, and the kind of Mercury in Leo transit, and just a great time to express, communicate, write, read, when it comes to anything flashy, when it comes to the extravagant, when it comes to drama. But anyway, this is about, are you a psychic? This stream, are you a psychic? And I wanted to talk about a few things, actually. So I've got some notes here, and I also made some notes in my phone, so I'm going to be referring to my phone as well. But basically, I think everyone is psychic. Every one of us is psychic. And astrologically speaking, I think the variations in terms of how we are psychic, or what kinds of psychic we're talking about, that depends on the placements that you were born with natally. But not only that, I also will talk about current transits, or planets kind of going through two specific houses, which you might have empty actually natally, but when planets go through these two houses, you might be more psychic, so to speak. And so it's not just about natal astrology, but what's going on in real time. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about is just like there are four kind of factors, basically. I'll introduce these four factors that I wanted to answer this question with. Are you psychic? And the first thing is moon signs. So to look at your moon sign, and that's going to tell you like how specifically you are psychic, or what, or rather, yeah, kind of what kind of psychic you might be, or how you are psychic. And the reason why I want to start with moon signs, because the moon in astrology represents reception. It represents reacting to things. It represents also the archetypal mother. It represents intuition, instinct, and all those kind of words. And also, if we look at the moon card in the tarot, for example, or other archetypes of the moon elsewhere, the moon is that which is murky, or that which is not absolutely clear. And so we can talk about this in terms of the psychic as well, the intuition. A lot of these placements, when we talk about moon placements, especially moon in water and moon in fire placements, they're going to be more where you just have an inkling, you just have a gut feeling about things, but you don't necessarily have the accuracy. You don't exactly know who or what or when or where. That's more air and earth moon placements. But with the fire and water, you're still going to have some kind of feeling. So yeah, when we talk about intuition and instinct, it's not necessarily, or when we talk about psychic, it's not necessarily that you have all the information, or that you have facts at all. It's a lot to do with, when we talk about moon signs, it's a lot to do with just feeling. And so that's why I wanted to talk about, or label moon signs as one of the first factors to consider when you think about, am I psychic, or is someone psychic, or how is someone psychic? And Mercury signs as well. Being psychic is just another word, really, for knowing. It's just another word for knowing whether the thing you know is through actual fact, through words, through language data, or whether it's a feeling, an instinct, an intuition. And so we also should look at Mercury placements. So your natal Mercury, when looking to see how you might be psychic specifically. Because the mind, of course, also receives messages. And especially if you are, for example, a Mercury in the 12th house person, regardless of the sign, but if you're Mercury in the 12th house natally, it's quite often that you get messages that are in the form of words, perhaps in the form of language, in the form of like data, numbers even, or even through images that are seemingly mundane or seemingly like pedestrian. You get these psychic messages in dreams or in dream state. And that's a Mercury placement. It's not to do with the moon, but Mercury in that case. Other people might, you might have Mercury in Gemini or Mercury in the 3rd house. And so you get a lot of messages just when you're out and about on the daily. So you might be really into numerology. You might be really tuned into synchronicity, which has nothing to do with like the voodoo or black magic or whatever the case might be. These are all just words, right? But it has nothing to do with kind of the more moon archetype things. It's just about seeing signs literally, actually around you that are apparently pedestrian or mundane or local, but for Mercury in Gemini or Mercury in the 3rd house people, they could actually hold a lot of information, which gives you psychic messages anyway, or gives you an inkling, gives you the kens, it gives you something that you come to know. Obviously, how that manifests for you specifically individually depends entirely on your whole birth chart for you as an individual. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is, I hope, by the way, if you're tuning in, you can hear me. Just write in the comments if you can. I've got my big microphone in, but I don't know. Anyway, I have a nice coffee as well. It's lovely. Monday, moon day. It was raining really heavily earlier. It was just a nice day. Did some laundry, did some chores, did some dancing to Taylor Swift. It's a good day. Anyway, The third thing I wanted to talk about in terms of 4 factors, then the third thing is these, as I mentioned earlier, the current kind of transits, so real-time transits, and especially to look at the moon in Scorpio transit. So whenever the moon is going through Scorpio, um, you may well feel somehow more psychic, because the moon in Scorpio transits are to do with, again, because it's the moon, receiving and intuiting, but in the scorpionic sense. So the moon's already associated with water. Scorpio is already a water sign, but the specificity of Scorpio and that constellation is about fixation. It's about intensity. It's about power as well. But the other kind of flavors of Scorpio are to do with reality and truth and getting to the bottom of something. In traditional astrology sources, you can see or read things like, oh, Scorpio is the surgeon, or Scorpios love to dig, or Scorpios are the investigators, or the kind of, yeah, the investigators of the zodiac. That doesn't mean that your actual profession literally is that, but that you have that kind of thing about you. But for all of us, whenever the moon is in Scorpio, the things that we receive, the people we react and respond to, we're going to be doing that in a more scorpionic way, aka feeling the truth a bit more, feeling what is real a bit more, and especially things to do with secrets, the taboo, however you want to construe secrets or taboo, they come a bit more to light or more to the surface whenever the moon is in Scorpio for all of us. Or rather, that's how you should be riding the waves of reaction, and not avoiding something that you have an inkling about, especially if it's uncomfortable but true. Something that you have an inkling about during a moon and Scorpio transit, you should just take it as an actual thing, a real thing, a true thing, trying to be received by you, intuited by you. When you're not riding the lunar wave, is when you deny it, when you you refuse to receive. Fourth thing I wanted to talk about then is you can look specifically at your 8th and your 12th houses, so your 8th and 12th houses natally, to see what is there already for you as an individual. And the 8th house then to do, just very briefly, with things that are scorpionic, again, things that are taboo, things that are hidden, things that are to do also with manipulative people or situations or ideas. And people who have planets in the 8th house, I want to say I believe people who have planets in the 8th house are much more likely to intuit. They're much more psychic when it comes to things like manipulative people, or things like controlling people, or power games, or things like when someone is trying to hide something, they're just much more receptive, or they're much more involved, because you could have Mars here, you could have Jupiter here, so that would mean you're just much more involved in those things. Jupiter will give you a lot of wisdom as well, and knowledge acquired when it comes to these things. But let's say you have Mars in the 8th house, it's gonna anyway make you very willing to pursue kind of 8th house psychic things, or psychoanalytical things, or something that is to do with the occult as well. However that's construed, it could be Ouija boards, could be black magic, whatever the case is, you're kind of interested in it. And Mars in the 8th house puts your will and your drive there. That's kind of all I wanted to say in terms of those 4 factors. Then the second thing, though, depending on your moon, going back to moons, then depending on your moon, it can make you more accurately psychic or less accurately psychic. But accurate or not, it doesn't really matter. You are receiving something. You are intuiting something. You know something, but you know it in the kind of emotional sense, in the kind of mother's instinct, the maternal instinct sense, a mother's knowing, a mother's intuition kind of sense. And I just wanted to mention to you like something that happened to me like a few years ago. Sorry, someone's messaging me. A few years ago, this happened with like an ex, and I was working at a restaurant at the time, and we had to carry these really big bowls of pho or Vietnamese broth, okay, which is like scalding hot, basically scalding hot soup or broth. We had to carry them in this very like fast, very busy restaurant in the middle of Soho, London. And anyway, things were going quite well. It was obviously quite a stressful, intense job, but there was one day when I spilt, I think it was one or two of these bowls, because we had to carry them on these trays. But if you didn't, manage the tray in a certain way, it could easily tip, and then you spill all this pho. And I spilt it. Not only spilt it, but all on myself, like on my chest, my arms, spilt it. It was like horrendously scalding hot. And so I had to get sent home because of that sort of injury at the workplace, blah, blah, blah. But for whatever reason, I decided maybe I just wasn't thinking to do it, but I didn't tell my partner what had happened, and I just wanted to get straight home because it was very embarrassing as well. I was very like frustrated as well with what had happened, because at the time I really needed the money, really needed to work, and I was really work focused as well. And so I was annoyed that I was, because this was the kind of place that wouldn't pay you. They wouldn't pay you for the hours you were off, ill or injured. Anyway, that's another thing. But for whatever reason, I didn't tell him that I was coming home early. And it was really dark, and I got home. I was coming home, and where we lived at that time was in this little quiet side street. And I know that at that time, no one is there. Very, very, very few people are there. There's no reason. There's no shops. There's nothing open. It's just like our place and a couple of businesses that are always shut from like 4 or 5 p.m. onwards. Anyway, as I came back home, this person came out of our house and passed me. They came out of our house and passed me. And being a Cancer moon, something at the time told me that person, there was just something about that person that I needed to know, or that I was feeling. But for whatever reason, I think because I was burnt and I was still angry, flustered, whatever the case might be, I didn't even say anything to them. I just kind of looked at them, and they looked at me, and we crossed paths. And it was confirming for me at the time, even though in real time I didn't respond at all to it, but it confirmed to me at the time that my partner was cheating on me. And this was an ex. We were both cheating on each other, actually, but like it confirmed to me something that I was feeling. And when I entered the place, the kind of yard, if you like, I realized that my partner was also already outside, which was really weird. He was already outside with like a light on his iPhone. And I wondered like why he would be there, because it's so dark. This yard was so dark. And I wondered why he's out there in the yard shining this light. And I think he was a bit surprised that I was back early. And so I just asked him, "Oh, what are you doing like out so late, shining a light?" And he said something to do with, "Oh, I was just checking the gas," or something like that, some answer like that. But again, the Cancer moon placement made me really uncomfortable for some reason. But there's this expression in English, like that a mother's knowing or a mother's intuition. There is something, or a gut instinct, a gut feeling. Cancer is also the gut. So there's something that you just know. But um, it wasn't acted on at the time. Maybe if you had like a moon in fire placement, I think would be much more reactive in the moment and may well have fled that situation, that experience more in the moment. Whereas I think if you have a moon in water placement, especially moon in Pisces, moon in Cancer, there's gonna be more of a delay or even denial, especially moon in Pisces might be more in denial of that reception. But anyway, that's just one example of like how you might be psychic. You might, and this was a built-up thing. So during that long relationship, already feeling like things weren't working out, things weren't reciprocal, things were shady, or things were dishonest, or whatever the case might be, already feeling these things. And our spirit has ways in this real world to tell us, yes, that's what the fuck it is, and you need to get out of that relationship, or you need to get out of that place or situation. Your spirit has ways of showing you that. And the more in denial of something or someone you are, the stronger the signs, the signals come. And one way that can come is that, you end up actually physically hurting yourself, or you end up having to, for some reason, stop something suddenly, and you literally you are placed in the real situation where you're being shown in front of your eyes, in front of all your real tangible senses, because other things didn't work, other signals didn't work, you weren't intuiting, and so you're actually put in situations. And this is why, reckless spirits, or reckless people, I should say, who really don't know themselves spiritually, this is why, they die in reckless accidents and incidents, or this is why they get themselves in really awful situations, because they ignored so many of these signals and signs until it's too late. And so, yeah, it will play out differently for you depending on your moon placement, your moon sign. I think especially if you have moon in Cancer, there's a lot of just this inkling or gut feeling of many things about people, about situations. But the negative or the drawback of moon in Cancer is that you don't quite know what it is, or you're too shy or sensitive about it, or you're just like, for some reason, there's moodiness as well. You could be in another mood, and that you mistake. And so you mistake a sign for just the ebb and flow of your moods, your moodiness, but actually it's a sign. So yeah, that's how I think it plays out for moon in Cancer people. What else did I want to talk about? Oh yeah, if you look at this card that I use often, this is from Kim Krans's Wild Unknown Tower deck. This is the High Priestess, and you can see this is a good illustration, I think, for psychic, what it is to be psychic, be a psychic person. This tiger, the Eye of the Tiger, we even have that song, right? The Eye of the Tiger. And also you can talk about tiger archetypes themselves. And the tiger Chinese astrological archetype as well could be really relevant here when we talk about knowing and being psychic. But you can see anyway that this tiger on this card doesn't look up at the moon, and also doesn't look down at the crystal ball. There's this sense of, or you can see actually, just looking straight ahead, and also a sense of waiting. And I think this is what being psychic is all about for all of us. Waiting for the signs that come as they naturally come to you, and in your natural way of intuiting, your personal way of being psychic. And everyone, as I've said earlier in this video, in this stream, everyone is differently psychic. Some people pick up on really they process mundane things. Other people process, they read psychically through dreams. Others through maybe even sensuality, physicality. Others through pain, actually experiencing pain, experiencing nausea, really, really bodily things. People might have visions, whatever the case might be. But here, this card really shows us that it's not only about the moon, it's not only about something that's dark and murky and mysterious. It could also be something that is like this crystal ball, something man-made, something of the earth, of this realm, of this planet, which shows you literally, actually something. But also there's you in the middle who is navigating all the time what is a sign and what is not. And I'm going to make a video eventually one day on synchronicity versus confirmation bias. I think that's a really important thing to talk about and think about and remember. But basically your spirit knows whether something is up or not. Your spirit knows. But again, how that is exactly depends on you as an individual and your astrological makeup or your spiritual makeup. So that's the High Priestess card anyway. Also, what I did was I thought it would be fun to go on Google and have a look. I just Googled like top 10 psychics, top 10 famous psychics in the world. I was curious. And let me get back to you on the website, actually, because I didn't write it down. But later in the description, I'll give you the link if you're interested. I decided to look at these kind of top 10 world famous not astrologers, psychics. Some of them actually do astrology as well, but psychics, whatever that is. And I thought it would be interesting to look at each of their birth charts. And I just noted down what I think was most significant. Of course, you can go yourself and look at each individual's chart and all the intricacies. As you probably know, reading just your own birth chart takes yonks and it's very complex. So I just noted down what I think is relevant to this particular topic. But anyway, the first person on this list is Teresa Caputo, said in my accent, Teresa Caputo, who is a Pisces moon. And Pisces is this archetype, this energy, which is often described by astrologers as being all-knowing or really intuitive. It just knows. Pisces just knows when something is going to end, when it's going to end with someone, blah, blah, blah. Hi, Sapyori. Is it Sapyori? Is that a Korean name, by the way? It looks like a Korean name. But anyway, nice to see you. Yes, so Teresa Caputo is a Pisces moon, and Pisces is often talked about as this kind of all-knowing, all-encompassing sort of archetype energy. Now, I don't know Teresa's rising sign, and I am going to get onto something interesting I found about this list. But anyway, another thing is Teresa has a retrograded Neptune natally in Scorpio. So Pisces, the moon in a water sign, and also Neptune retrograde in a water sign. And not only that, but in Scorpio. And so what you get is probably someone who gets dreams that are quite dark, or somehow in a scorpionic sense allows Teresa to come to see the reality, break through illusions and delusions especially. And also Teresa has Mercury in Cancer, so she has planets in all the water signs, first of all, as this makes someone who's already very, very, very intuitive, emotional. She could be an emotionally empathetic person. An empath is what they're called, right? A lot of the time they could be an empath when they have lots of planets in the water signs or water houses. And also someone with this kind of constitution astrologically, again, kind of similar to me with the Cancer moon placement, you might not be able to actually give 100% accurate information or translations or facts, but there's this sense of gut feeling or intuition. Also, Teresa has Venus in Taurus, and Taurus is not really talked about so much, but Taurus, being the opposite of Scorpio, is also a very it's this kind of archetype which just receives things in a very basic way in terms of the senses, aka bullshit. Bullshit is a big thing that Taurians can sense, but this goes into the sort of non-physical as well, the non-physical, in terms of smelling that something is up spiritually, or seeing that something is up perhaps in a dream or in a vision. Also, Teresa has Black Moon or Black Moon Lilith retrograde in Pisces, and Mars in Gemini. What I find a lot of the time is people who are into, let's say, palm reading or tarot, and in this case, being a psychic, Mars in Gemini appears. Mars in Gemini. Mars, again, that will, that drive, the passion in the sign of Gemini, which is always about mental stimulation and what's interesting and flitting between all kinds of perspective, all kinds of information, especially, just like with Sagittarius. But here it's even more poignant because it's in the mundane sense. Gemini is more about the mundane, the local, the immediate. And so you get a perfect placement for someone who is a psychic or someone who provides a kind of service alongside their intuitive receptions or powers, whatever you want to call it. Also, Pluto for Teresa is conjunct Uranus in Virgo, which is quite interesting. Virgo also being the opposite of Pisces, again, being this kind of hermit archetype, who pays very special attention to detail. But with Uranus here, especially, this gives someone who's able to revolutionize or reach the masses somehow through an acute sense of the details, an acute sense of what is and what isn't as well. The wheat from the chaff. This is a very Virgoan thing, which I'm going to talk about once Virgo season comes, but wheat from the chaff as well, kind of thing. So that's kind of just my notes on Teresa. The next person is John Edward. So another famous psychic called John Edward. And what I found out about John Edward is John is a Sagittarius rising or Sagittarius ascendant, has a sun, has their sun, and also a whole stellium. There's a stellium of planets, bodies in Libra in the 11th house. And so 11th house activity, very high for this person. And the 11th house is about the masses or communities or circles, networks. And so again, you get a good placement for someone who wants to be a psychic or is a psychic. Again, whether, I'm not saying that these people are psychic. I'm just providing astrological insights, astrological, that's interesting kind of thing. And also, John Edward's moon is in the 3rd house. So you get the moon, this intuitive planet, which I talked about earlier, the moon in the house of local interaction and the immediate locality. So again, and it's an Aquarius moon. So someone who can really not only reach the masses with that Aquarian energy, not only progressively do that, but do it in a local kind of canny, kind of helpful way. A lot of Gemini people, a lot of Gemini heavy people work in sort of apparently mundane data handling, or even if they're like an artist, it's like they tend to talk about quite everyday things, but in like those very witty, mercurial ways. So again, this is, to me anyway, this is perfect if you want to be a psychic, a tarot reader, because you intuitively already natally are responding to people around you, and you kind of care, you can take responsibility emotionally for people, things that are immediately around you. It basically means you're more trusted, I think, or you're more accessible to more people, hence you're going to be more famous. Black Moon or Lilith in Cancer in the 8th house. So this is Cancer in the 8th house. Cancer in the 8th house being that intuitive energy in the house of the occult, what is hidden. And also the Black Moon or the Lilith being here, this gives someone who's going to they're going to be a bit renegade, rebellious about it. They're going to, some people might know things, but they don't want to share them, right? Some people might be afraid, whatever the case might be. But with this placement, you may well rebel against something or refuse to hold something secret. Or in this case of like becoming famous, you might choose to run away with what you know and make money, or run away with what you know and kind of make something public, make something open. Yeah, that kind of thing perhaps can happen with these placements. The next person is Zebia Gasparetto, an Aries rising, and also Zebia has Moon and Aries in the first house. Obviously, Aries is in the first house, but the Moon is also in the first house. So Moon in the first house people, or Moon rising people, already are, at least apparently, at least by appearance, they're already very receptive. Whether they're male or female or something else, they're already seemingly passive, receptive, maternal somehow. They're already seemingly wanting to cuddle people or care about people. That kind of aura they already have. So that could really work well if you're trying to be a psychic, or if you are a psychic, it could work well because you already pull in a lot of people and things with this aura of yours. What is also really interesting is Zebia has 8th house placements again, and they are Saturn and Scorpio. Saturn in the 8th house makes someone who's going to get serious about their 8th house stuff. Saturn is a lot to do with business savvy and also discipline, excuse me, discipline and also career. When we talk about career, jobs, work, effort, we can often find Saturn and Capricorn, these archetypes. And so anyone who has Saturn in the 8th house is going to make, they're going to make sense, serious sense of their 8th house issues. And in this case, because we're talking about psychics, we've got someone who identifies as a psychic, and they're making money out of it. They are being structured and disciplined about it. They are making tangible use of it as well. And also Scorpio being in Zebia's 8th house, that's a very natural placement. Scorpio being in the house where the landlord of that house is already Scorpio. So it's a very natural alignment there. And also Zebia has a Cancer stellium in the 4th house. So Cancer in the 4th house, and then a lot of other things going on in Zebia's 4th house. And the 4th house then being that Cancerian house of the mother, of personal comfort, of personal roots, of personal past, of nostalgia memories that are personal, of home, homeland, home country, blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't know specifically what kind of psychic work Zebia does, but it may well be particularly touching for people who are trying to connect to family members who've passed, for example, or people who are intrigued by the family or roots of the past, especially when they talk about psychic. When we talk about psychics, Zebia might be that kind of psychic, or someone who even appears somehow family friendly as a psychic. 29 degrees retrograded Uranus and Pisces in the 12th house is an amazing couple of alignments that Zebia has. So 29 degrees retrograded Uranus and Pisces in the 12th house. So Pisces in the 12th house is already that natural alignment of very intuitive person in the dreamscape. Again, that just knowing. And the 12th house is also about pure spirit. And to have Uranus here, you put this revolutionary planet, this transformative, rebellious planet, this planet of technology as well, and reaching out to the masses. You put that planet in that house. So you're getting someone who's basically going to project. It's like having a speakerphone that disseminates your dreams or disseminates your spirit. So that's a really, really intense, because it's 29 degrees retrograde, but 29 degrees, it's a really intense placement if you want to be like some kind of TV personality who talks about dreams or talks about spirituality or talks about spirit. So that's just something I noted down. Another thing is, or another person is Chip Coffey. Chip Coffey, I think that's how their name is pronounced, but Chip Coffey is the next sort of famous, world famous psychic. And Chip Coffey is also, like John Edward, Sagittarius rising. And Chip has in Cancer, in the 8th house, Jupiter. So Jupiter and Cancer in the 8th house. So I already talked about Cancer and 8th a little bit, but Jupiter is that planet of massive expansion and wisdom, teaching, being some kind of guru, being some kind of preacher even, and being a Sagittarius rising as well. His life path ruler is in the 8th house. So part of his life path is to do with 8th house stuff. So, I mean, come on, that's part of his right way. His moon is in Gemini. So you get someone who has a Sagittarius worldview, but then someone whose moon, whose emotional reservoir is actually in the opposing Gemini sort of realm. And so someone who's intuitive also on, or responsive also on the mundane level. Basically, this means someone who's not going to be too high and mighty or preachy or too abstract when it comes to their psychic worldview, let's say. It's going to be someone who's actually still able to relate to any kind of Tom, Dick, or Harry, or help any kind of Tom, Dick, or Harry, using these psychic abilities, whatever the case might be. Also, Chip has Sun, Leo, Pluto, and Mercury all in the 9th house. So you have this 9th house stellium, and the 9th house is the house of Sagittarius. And so you get a lot of knowing, higher education, higher learning there. And Pluto is there as well, making it the kind of learning that is intense or that is subversive. And then Mercury also being there makes it someone who's able to communicate that or talk about it in a very mercurial, interesting, engaging, stimulating way. And Leo being here as well in the 9th house makes someone like Chip Coffey kind of proud, or makes them a sort of star almost when it comes to the 9th house, when it comes to their teachings, when it comes to their right way. And in this case of Chip Coffey, the right way has something to do with being a psychic, or something to do with being a medium, or something to do with communicating between realms, whatever the case might be. Next person then is James Van Praagh. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but James Van Praagh, another famous psychic, 0 degrees Capricorn rising. So basically, you may have noticed the pattern. There's a lot of Sagittarius rising psychics, or so-called psychics, a lot of Sagittarius rising psychics, or the majority of this list is Sagittarius rising. And what did I want to say about James? Yes, so James is 0 degrees Capricorn rising, so the ascendant on the border between Sagittarius and Capricorn. And also James's moon and retrograded Saturn and Sagittarius are all in the 12th house. So again, you have those two planets, the moon and Saturn, in the 12th house of pure spirit, in the 12th house of the dreamscape, in the 12th house of hidden treasure as well. The 12th house is about hidden treasure. And so someone who's very intuitive when it comes to their dreams, someone who's also very disciplined and making money out of their dreams, or whatever is in their 12th house, making money out of the 12th house. And Sagittarius being in the 12th house as well gives dreams or dreamscape that it just knows, knows, and also is kind of wise, because wisdom is a big word we use for Sagittarius, but wise, knowing things. In the 11th house, then, we also have Neptune and Scorpio for James. And Neptune then being very much associated with television, for example, with film, with images, with fantasy screens. And then Scorpio being here as well gives someone the sort of manipulative abilities when it comes to the 11th house stuff of circles, communities, networks. So again, this is a good recipe for someone who wants to get on TV, for example, or someone who could get on TV and get on TV projecting, talking about their sort of more scorpionic things. Again, scorpionic things being, the occult or digging under or finding things out, investigations, blah, blah, blah. Also, James's Mercury is 29 degrees retrograde in Leo in the 8th house. And so Leo in the 8th house is like a star psychic or a star, someone who's going to fixate, at least when it comes to how they feel, when it comes to their vision of their 8th house things. They're going to fixate, they're going to be loyal to it, they're going to stick fast, they're going to also have there's something ego going on about it as well, something egotistical perhaps that could go on here. But then that 29 degree Mercury retrograde in the 8th house is very intense. 29 degrees, very intense, but also reflective. Someone who is probably very sure of their 8th house matters, very sure, very carefully, has reflected over their whole life, has been able to revise. And there could be this sense of pride as well that comes, or this this proud personality that surfaces out of the 8th house, having Leo here. And also there is 0 degrees Sun in Virgo. Okay, 0 degrees Sun in Virgo, on the cusp though with Leo. So Leo, Virgo, border, you get the Sun as well. So the ego actually for James is here, and the ego is wrapped up in basically 8th / 9th house things. So 8th house again being the scorpionic sort of occult things, and then the 9th house being about those Sagittarian, let's teach, let's preach, let's propagate type things. So again, pretty good recipe when it comes to a celebrity or a star or personality that is associated with psychic teaching, that is associated with occult teaching. Also in the 8th house, James has Venus and Uranus. So Venus, especially being in the 8th house, is someone who's able to relate 8th house things. Their flow is very 8th house. I mean, if you have an 8th house artist, Venus in the 8th house artist, their music or their art is going to be somehow scorpionic or somehow 8th house, very much so. And then Uranus, again, being in the 8th house, Uranus provides that revolutionary potential. So someone who can progress as an individual, progress in their life. And especially because James is a Capricorn rising, James already has a kind of Taylor Swift Capricorn rising worldview that knows how to make all these kind of abstract, occult, often not really believed in things, to make it all become materialized, to make money out of it all, to make structure, discipline, something tangible out of it all. Next, Lisa Williams. Lisa Williams is the next sort of famous psychic that I found on this list. And Lisa, lo and behold, is also a Sagittarius rising. And Lisa's moon is conjunct a retrograded Jupiter and Aquarius in the 3rd house. So moon, I talked about that earlier with another of these psychics, but moon in the 3rd house already is someone who is locally very receptive, locally very relatable, or if not relatable, they are able to take responsibility, to care, to mother others, other things, people immediately around them. And then Jupiter in the 3rd house just expands all of that, and it gives luck actually, and hidden audiences. Jupiter provides hidden audience. And so you get this in the 3rd house. So in the house of personally relating, being personally intelligent, on the kind of street, Okay, with any, again, Tom, Dick, or Harry type of thing. And then Aquarius in the third house as well, which is amazing. Aquarian energy in the third house is someone who's able to project, or at least is projecting, how they personally think, how they personally relate to the masses, or to different collectives, or through also use of technology. It could be quite progressive in some cases. The technology or the platforms that they use could be quite progressive. Lisa also has a 29 degrees Mars in the fourth house and Pisces in the fourth house. So all that will, drive, determination, passion, what kind of gets Lisa heated up is Piscean, is to do with that Piscean all-knowing, all-intuiting, almost, when we talk about Pisces and the 11th house, sorry, the 12th house, we talk about divine knowing. We talk about ultimate knowing. And because it's the last sign, it's the last archetype, we talk about ultimate knowing. And this then is in the fourth house. So being very comfortable at home with knowing, being very comfortable at home, rooted in, what's that called? Some kind of omniscience, some kind of ultimate knowing. And also comfortable personally in spirituality as well with this placement, comfortable in spiritual things, because Pisces is in the fourth house. So comfortable with the spiritual, comfortable with the non-worldly or the non-mundane, just very comfortable there. And Fortune, Venus, Mercury, and Cancer for Lisa are all in the 8th house. Fortune in the 8th house with Venus as well in the 8th house means a lot of money or a lot of material coming out of the 8th house issues for Lisa. So again, quite good for someone who may want to capitalize on a psychic ability or intuition. They have Fortune here as well. And in Lisa's case, Fortune is here too. So that's money, payments. And then Venus is here too. So attracting a lot of people that are kind of 8th house, and attracting a lot of 8th house situation scenarios, because Lisa's flow is Venus, in the Venusian sense, Lisa's flow is very 8th house anyway. But Cancer is here too in the 8th house, making someone who, when it comes to these occult things, whether it's tarot, whether it's astrology, whether it's, in this case, being a psychic, the flow also feels Cancerian, which is emotional reciprocity, meaning that Lisa is probably able to establish a lot of relationships that are give and take when it comes to these powers, or being psychic. There's something reciprocal, something empathetic with these relationships, something even that could be to do with mothering, being a kind of mother for, if Lisa has clients, for clients. There's, yeah, that reciprocity and the kind of mother, sort of the way in which Lisa flows in the 8th house will somehow also appear maternal. Also, what I noted down for Lisa was the retrograded Uranus, Pluto, and Libra in the 11th house. Uranus, Pluto, and Libra in the 11th house. Libra in the 11th house means that Lisa can appear in these collectives, in the masses, to be balanced as well, to be also aesthetic, because Libra is about aesthetic, and maybe even talking a lot about love, or musing on love as well, because Libra is about love or relationships as well. A lot of the psychic work for Lisa could be to do with relationships, could be to do with, or could even be to do with talking about being a psychic, talking about like intellectualizing when it comes to, or having at least conversation about what it is to be psychic, about the psychic realm, whatever the psychic abilities, whatever the case might be. Because Libra loves to talk, especially when it comes to a convention, convening a group, and Libra loves to get in on everyone's kind of perspective as well, and to have a kind of balance there. But then, yes, to have a retrograded Uranus in the 11th house presents someone who is, Uranus already is naturally placed in the 11th house here, but retrograded gives someone who, in some 11th house sense, has made enough hiccups in life to be the kind of person where they're very reflective, they're very careful, they're very knowledgeable when it comes to where they could slip up in their revolutionary potential of the 11th house, as opposed to someone who might be born natally with direct Uranus in the 11th house, who might continue to make kind of flippant mistakes or continue to rebel too much or rebel unnecessarily. A retrograded planet gives someone who, although there's some sense of delay, someone who's more familiar with the big hiccups that can afflict us. And so they kind of they've learned a particular lesson that planet teaches the hard way. Finally, Esther Hicks, aka Abraham Hicks, is another psychic. I could not find Esther's rising sign, but Esther has Sun in Pisces. Again, a Sun in Pisces placement, and Mercury in Aquarius. So someone who's thinking in a very out of the box way, someone who's thinking in a very revolutionary way, someone who's thinking in a very communicate with the masses technologically kind of way. And then Uranus in Gemini as well for Esther. So revolution when it comes to relating to the other, revolution, progress when it comes to the mundane, the local again, but also the savvy, the kind of the Kens, in being able to engage, to counsel, being able to, it's almost like providing everyday advice, run-of-the-mill advice, but in a psychic sense. Uranus in Gemini provides a psychic who can do this on a massive scale, provides a psychic who can do this possibly on a unique scale somehow, considering Esther's generation or Esther's circle or Esther's place. Something that Esther does and the way that Esther thinks and communicates and talks to people, everyday people, could be very out of the box somehow. Anyway, that's kind of all I really wanted to talk about. But you notice in this list, there's a lot of Sagittarius rising. There's a lot of 12th house stuff going on, 8th house stuff going on, and quite like 2 or 3 like 29-degree placements as well. So the intensity as well. Anyway, I hope this stream was of use, interesting, and I hope for anyone who has this question, am I psychic? Are you psychic? What is it to be psychic? Has some more kind of insights now. And also that Donald, who requested this video, I hope you enjoyed. Okay, please let me know in the comments what you think. Are you psychic? Do you identify as psychic? What are your placements? Do you know of any other famous psychics, mediums, and their astrology? Let's have a little chit chat maybe. Anyway, have a lovely rest of the Monday, Moon Day, and I will see you next time, my loves. Take care. Mwah.